מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומי צאי מתוך עברה רב לך שבט עמק הבכה והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה יאללה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה לה 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 בני שבת נקבלה התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי על יד בני ישי בית הלחמים קרבה אל נפשי גאה לה יאללה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה לה 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 בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה 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 פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה 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 פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה 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 פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה 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 פני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShavet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon. Mi melech Malachi HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We invite you to rise for Baruch Hu, page 146.
Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam, 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 Le'olam va'ed. Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
The bottom of 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. So shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my friend, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my friend, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom alevavecha Veshinantam levanecha vedibartabam beshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. But there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Let's turn the page.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, osei fele. Nora tehilot, osei fele. Adonai, imloch le'olam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Ze Elianu ve'amru, ze Elianu ve'amru. Adonai, imloch le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh.
If you hold your place, we're going to look at the very back of the book. Look in the middle of page 677. 677.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Help me make each day song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Oh, guide my steps, help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Help me make each day song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha.
We move into the tefillah together. We invite you to rise, if you're able, and we continue on 164.
Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Agit. Ufi Agit Tehillah. Adonai, Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Agit. Ufi Agit Tehillah. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Agit. Ufi Agit Tehillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanura El Elyon Gomel chasadim tovim v'kodei hakol v'zocher chastei ahavot v'imahot u'mevi geula livnei v'neham leman shemo b'ahava melech ozer u'moshia u'magin Baruch atah Adonai magin Avraham v'ezrat Sarah Atah gibor leolam Adonai Mechaye hakol atarav lahoshia Mashiva ruach umarida Hashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Samech novlim verovei cholim Umatir asurim Umekayim emunato Lishenei afar Micha mocha ba'al gevurot Umito meloch Melech memit Umechaya Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye hakol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh Ugdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. Let's read together on 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And on 177, God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us, so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer our thanks. Baruch atah Adonai. Atov Shimcha Lecha Na'el Lehodot. Let's turn the page.
Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atahu Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki Atahu Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. L'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol et v'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Let's take some time for our own personal prayer, our own private reflections. If you want to follow the text, you can look at 179 through 181. Choose any reading you'd like to reflect upon, or just take some time for your own quiet.
Say shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, le'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. La 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 la, la 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 la. Oh, say shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen.
It's always after our prayer for peace, for wholeness in the world, that we share peace and wholeness with those who are in the midst of their own struggles. Our prayer for healing has the words, El na refanala, the same words Moses shared and cried out when his sister Miriam had to fight her own disease, was stricken with this terrible tzara'at, this skin condition. And he just cried out from the heart, El na refanala, please God, heal her. So this newer melody has El na refanala, please God, heal her. El na refanalo, please God, heal him. El na refanala, please God, heal all of us. We always share some names. If you choose, if you'd like to, call them out.
Mi sheberach
Yishaberach
avotenu
Avotenu
Makor ha'chaim
Mekor HaChaim
Ve'imotenu
Ve'imotenu
Hu yivarech
Hu Yevarech
Ve'yiraveh
Ve'yirapeh
Et ha'cholim
Et HaCholim
Et ha'cholim
Et HaCholim
El narefanala El narefanalo El narefanala El narefanalanu El narefanala El narefanalo El narefanala El narefanalanu Mi sheberach
Yishaberach
avotenu
Avotenu
Makor ha'chaim
Mekor HaChaim
Ve'imotenu
Ve'imotenu
Hu yivarech
Hu Yevarech
Ve'yiraveh
Ve'yirapeh
Et ha'cholim
Et HaCholim
Et ha'cholim
Et HaCholim
El narefanala El narefanalo El narefanala El narefanalanu El narefanala El narefanalo El narefanala El narefanalanu.
Amen. You know, it's this idea of healing that I've been thinking a lot about this week. I know that on the news, Colorado passed 10,000 people who have died from COVID. And it's hard for me to even comprehend. It's hard for me to understand how there are more people online and in a sanctuary. It's hard for me to understand that there are months and months and months that we did everything online. And now masks and air purifiers and nerves and angst, and some of us are coming and it's not quite the same. And even still, we come and we're online. I know some of you are cooking. I know some folks are in pajamas. That's fine. I'm not saying anything. The people online, everybody here is appropriately dressed. I want to be clear about that because they can't see you. But it's still unnerving for me too. And I guess part of that is looking at the Torah reading, and it's Vayechi, I'm not really talking about the Torah portion except for one word, Vayechi. Just Vayechi. Vayechi is in chapter 47, and it's the first significant word of the Torah portion. And it says, Vayechi, and Jacob lived. And he lived. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. Vayechi, and he lived. And if you really think about it for a bit, Jacob has had his own fair share. He made some mistakes when he was young. He grew up and was estranged from family. Later, he was estranged from his own homeland and had to live in Egypt. There were good moments too. He made up with the brother that he was always arguing with, so that's a positive. He reunited with family when Joseph, the guy with the cool jacket, when he realized that not only was he alive, but he was a prominent figure in Egypt, and he lived out the rest of his life in Egypt, a place that wasn't familiar, a place that was certainly new. Maybe he never learned the language like lots of immigrants. We don't know. But he had his losses and he had his hurts. And he moved to Egypt because there was a famine in his home. And the text says, Vayechi, and he lived. Now, there's lots of other words in Hebrew about how we talk about where I live. There's gar, which is sort of like your residence kind of living. There's yashav, about settling and dwelling someplace. But the term in the text is vayechi, he lived. And you know that word vayechi because it's the same root as when we say chai, which is the symbol 18. We always make these b'nai mitzvah gifts in the multiples of 18 because it's chai, which means life. And if you didn't know that, you know tevya and l'chaim, which is to life. Vayechi, and he lived. And I'm thinking about it, it couldn't have been easy for him to live so far away. It couldn't have been easy for him to have so many years with broken family relationships. It couldn't have been easy with the fact that he hurt his family with his choices. And I'm convinced of that because when he has this wrestling match with an angel and his name is changed from Jacob to Israel, he walks away with a limp. So, like lots of us, he has... Holly's walking with a limp these days, so I made her laugh. We have, like Jacob, high moments in our lives and low moments in our lives. And it still has to be vayechi. And we live, and we go on, and we journey, and we do the best we can. How do we do that when this pandemic gets scary again? How do we feel like we can just go on and not realize that 10,000 people died in just this one state? Just Colorado. What about the whole world? Can we, when I say that, it's getting scary again, some people never stopped being afraid. And is this the first again? Is it the third again? Is it the fourth again? I've had moments of uts and angst a number of times. Then I chill out, and then it comes up again, and we're not sure what holds for our futures. Sometimes when I look at our biblical writers, all of our texts in the Torah, I think they see things so clearly. There's good and there's bad. There's reward, there's punishments. If there's a plague, if there's an epidemic, then it means that you've done something wrong. Easy. Now, I don't believe that's how God works or how the world works or how creation works. But they did, and I understand that they did. It was a little bit more black and white, and that's okay. And I think they really needed to understand that, like we do, I think, that there's a cause for the hard stuff that happens. There's a reason. It's hard to live our lives feeling like there's no reason for this hard stuff. It just happens. But I think when we grow, we sometimes are going to come to peace with the fact that there is no reason, that there's chaos in the world. And just like that story of creation, God starts to make order, but that chaos still is going to bubble up. For the writers of the Torah, a plague meant a punishment. It was a consequence for bad actions. I don't think that's true. We know of plagues of 10 of them when the Egyptians wouldn't let our ancestors out of Egyptian slavery. And so God was trying to convince them that the one they thought was the primary God, Pharaoh, wasn't really a God, was just a guy, and really couldn't and wasn't all-powerful. If we look at another scenario, we see that there is a rebellion against Moses and leadership from a guy named Korach, and all of his followers experienced the plague. And it was very clearly a punishment. And when Aaron, Moses' brother, steps forward and makes atonement for the people, the plague stops, just like that. There's even another time when there's a plague, when there is a lot of idolatry amongst the ancient Israelites. And God sends this punishment. And there's a zealot named Pinchas who executes 2 people. And for me, that's pretty problematic. But I'll share a point with you about it. He executes these people, and all of a sudden the plague stops, because he's protecting the integrity of the people of Israel. Now, with my 21st century lens, I have words for Pinchas. He could have made another choice. But even still, for the biblical writers, for our spiritual memories, for the truths that the Torah can still tell us, even with uncomfortable texts like Pinchas, what it tells me is that all of these things that happen, these plagues, can be responded to with actions. Now, sometimes there's a physical action that they do, and sometimes there was a spiritual action. You know, later on, with the story of Pinchas, the writers in Psalms, much later in the Torah, much later in the Bible, they say that the sacrifices offered to pagan idols, they provoked anger by their deeds, and a plague broke out among them. Pinchas stood up and intervened, and the plague ceased. They don't say how, just that he intervened. It was reckoned to his merit from generation to generation, to eternity. I actually think we have incredible power. I think we have a lot of power. And part of the reason why I'm thinking about this, too, is that for our 10th graders here, in preparation for taking them on a trip to Washington, D.C. to learn about social justice issues, I hope, to go to this seminar, and for them to then lobby their representatives in Congress, I do this because I believe that they have important voices, and when we were asking them, how powerful do you think they are, they felt like they had no power whatsoever. Nobody would listen to a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. And I have to try and convince them otherwise. And I really believe that's true and important. And I'm saying the same thing here. I think we have power. We can intervene. And it's not going to be just with prayer, right? Thoughts and prayers isn't going to be enough. I think prayer isn't going to fix the injustices in the world, but these prayers can change me. The prayers can help me see some truths. The prayer can help me find some strength, to recognize my power, to stand up and be counted and try and figure out how I can intervene. Remember that prayerful poem from Rabbi Ferdinand Isserman. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer might not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. I think prayer can change me, and I think prayer can change you and us, and we then can intervene on God's behalf to build a better, stronger, and safer world. I think this pandemic has taken its toll in ways we can't really understand yet. And we can't forget that it's still raging. We know that it has left lots of us feeling exhausted and frustrated, even depleted, particularly those in caring professions. And we can't forget those who have been alone in their homes or alone in their grief. So, I guess the message is we get to intervene. And it can start with prayer, but it can't end with prayer. Prayer, I hope, leads to generosity. Prayer leads to writing your representatives. Prayer can lead us to tolerate ourselves wearing these masks when encountering others without the need for reminders and putting the burden on someone else who might feel scared. Prayer can lead us towards getting vaccinated and then boosted. It's important. Prayer is going to lead us to community, even if it feels different, because we can't be alone. Prayer reminds us that we have to do our part to heal not just a broken or fragmented world, but one that's really wounded. Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our special ancestor, he was able to do it. And we know it because it says Vayechi. He lived. He didn't just dwell. He didn't take up residence. He lived. And I think we have to figure out how to do the same with everything that we're going through, pandemic and beyond. We can choose life, make a difference and a presence in our world, in our community, with our friends, with our families, and even to be a little gentle with ourselves. So we must. Let's move to Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach. It is upon us. 586. It's the bottom paragraph, 586. The bottom of the page. We'll ask you to rise again if you are able.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, שכינתו זו ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, וידעת היום, והשב אותה אל לבביך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
May be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, those of every race and of every nation whose lives have been a blessing to all of humanity. We remember the too many thousands who've died from this terrible virus, and as we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and of death. Kaddish is on page 598. If you are a mourner this Shabbat, if there is one whom you are remembering, we invite you to rise for a moment, share their names out loud. If you want to take off your mask, you can, so we can hear you and we can know their names. And then after we share additional names from the community, we'll continue with words of Kaddish. Ira, you want to share? Okay, Joel. We also remember in the period of Shloshim, those first 30 days, Graciela Corona, the grandmother of Francisca Antman. We remember Sylvia Rivkin Singer, the mother of Norma Portnoy. We remember Annette Greenberg, the sister of Carol Schaefer. And those yard sites that we recall this Shabbat: Richard Kozin, Karen Mitchell, Israel Nebedrick, Ruth Hablo, Rose Hablo, Bernard Freiberg, Rabbi Daniel Silver, Shirley Zavidoff, Herman Sonny Sloat, Harold Stern, Daniel Eaton, Mel Jackson, Rose Eaton, Florence Jean Leibovitz, David Crockett, Maria Elatova, Anita Marashik, Sidney Newlight, Leonard Goldstein, Irene Sutton, Sidney Friedlander, Judith Aronson, Ida Wigato, Sarah Winkler. Kaddish is on 598, and we stand as a community. By standing, we praise God's name for these words that are of praise, and we support our friends, symbolically surrounding them and holding it up, because Kaddish is never easy. 598. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei rabah ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'yamlich malchutei v'chai echon v'yom echon u'v'chai dechol beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kariv v'miru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivarach le'alam u'lamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei d'kodesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol be'erchata v'shirata, tush be'chata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma, v'yimeru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel v'yimeru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to the bereaved here and everywhere. Let's together say amen. You can return to your seats. A couple of quick things to share. First of all, we're always trying to make connections. So there's been a number of you folks, especially the folks online, who are saying, in the beginning when I was leading services from my own house and had a computer in front of me, can't really do that here. So we moved from Zoom, which felt, communal. Even still, we were all surprised by it. And coming into the sanctuary, we've just been streaming, which is very passive. Well, we have some volunteers who are sharing the stream and doing it through Zoom. So if you want to stay on your own, you can watch the stream on our website or on YouTube. I can't believe I say that out loud. On YouTube. And also on Zoom, and the links are in our emails. It's on our website calendar. You can go and take a look, and if you can't figure it out, let us know in an email. Lucy will tell you where it is. One of us will tell you where it is and how you can find it, so you can still see some other faces if you're online. We also want to remind you that, the sermons isn't just like, it's not supposed to be for some kind of intellectual entertainment. I really believe we have an opportunity to intervene for good. And one of the ways the congregation is trying to do so is with this Afghan refugee family that's moving onto our campus. So one of our houses, as many of you are already aware, has been furnished, and we've put in appliances, and we've fixed it up, and we're not going to be charging them rent for the indefinite future, or utilities, or Wi-Fi, or anything. That's a place where we used to get a full Boulder kind of rent from. But the synagogue is saying that we need to take care of these folks who have left home, and not something so different than how we talked about Jacob. So if you want to participate in supporting them, you can write to resettlement@harhashem.org. Our organizers are still, figuring out. We have more people than we need, but we want to give everybody an opportunity to play a part and to help out, whether it's driving to a doctor's visit or, helping with kids' toys, whatever it might be. We have possibilities, and there will be more in the days to come. On our homepage, we also have 2 ways to make an act of tzedakah. Through our website, we're collecting some money because there's no jobs for them, and they have very little English. He has very little English. So we're raising some money so we can support them, and there's money being raised to support the synagogue since we don't want to accept their rent. So that is on our homepage. So if you want to make an act of tzedakah, please do. If you want to help out somehow, write to resettlement@harhashem.org. And even through a more quiet time, we're going to be here, and we're going to be online, and Torah study continues also both in person, on land, online. So we're going to continue to figure things out as best as we possibly can. Let's have a closing prayer.
Page 643. Page 643. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefachet kla, v'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar. גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד.
We wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We're going to encourage you to meet somebody. You don't have to shake hands unless they say it's okay, but share your name and wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. You can't leave unless I witness it. One person you don't know.